The wind howled across the barren plains of Montana that night, carrying with it the sound of ghosts and memories too old to name. The sky was an empty ocean of gray, promising snow that hadn't yet come but threatened to swallow the world whole when it did. Jack Monroe, the rancher everyone, in Dry Creek called the Silent One, rode through that storm, with only the sound of his horse's hooves and the whisper of leather reins to remind him he was still alive. He'd buried too much, his wife, his laughter, his faith in anything warm, and since then, words had become strangers to him. The snow began to fall heavy as he reached the old bridge by Willow Creek, and that's when he saw her. A tiny figure huddled under the bridge, wrapped in nothing but rags and trembling so violently it hurt to watch. At first he thought she was a ghost, a mirage the loneliness had drawn in his mind, until he heard her voice soft as the wind itself. "Sir, can I slip under your coat?" Jack froze. No one had spoken to him like that in years. Not with fear, not with hope, not with that broken sort of trust only a child carries when the world has already been cruel. He dismounted, heart pounding harder than he liked to admit. The little girl couldn't have been more than 8 or 9, her face smudged with soot and her eyes wild with hunger and cold. She tried to shrink away from him, clutching a small doll made of twine and torn cloth. "Who's your family?" he managed to ask, his voice rough and unfamiliar from disuse. She shook her head. "They're gone," she whispered. "Mama went to sleep 2 nights ago and didn't wake up. I thought if I followed the train tracks, maybe I'd find someone." Jack swallowed the lump in his throat. He wasn't a man built for comfort. His hands were calloused, his heart colder than the land he worked. But something about her trembling voice cracked him open. Without a word he knelt, unbuttoned his heavy sheepskin coat, and wrapped it around her small frame. The warmth of her shivers seeped through the fabric, and suddenly, he wasn't sure if it was her or him that needed saving. "Come on," he muttered, lifting her onto his horse. She clung to him with weak arms, her cheek pressed against his chest. The storm howled harder, but somehow it didn't seem as cruel anymore. By the time they reached his cabin, night had swallowed the land whole. The fire crackled to life as he set her near the hearth, hands trembling slightly as he ladled warm soup into a tin bowl. She ate in silence, every bite a desperate act of survival. When she finally looked up, her eyes glimmered like melted amber. "Why did you stop for me?" she asked softly. Jack stared at her, the words stuck somewhere between his chest and throat. "Because once he thought someone didn't stop for my child." His mind flashed back to the carriage accident, the night his wife and daughter froze before help came. His mind. The girl's small hand touched his, and hesitant, trusting. "You're kind," she said. Jack looked away, blinking back tears he didn't know were still possible. "I ain't kind," he rasped. "Just couldn't ride past a ghost." But that night, as the storm buried the world in white, the cabin glowed with something warm for the first time in years. The girl, Annie, she said her name was Annie, hummed softly before falling asleep beside the fire, wrapped in his coat. Jack sat watching her, the flicker of the flames painting her face in gold. He realized then maybe life had sent him one last chance, not to forget the past, but to make peace with it. Morning came quiet, the world blanketed in snow. Annie woke with a smile, clutching the doll to her chest. "Do I have to go, sir?" she asked. Jack shook his head slowly. "Not till you want to." Days turned into weeks. She followed him around the ranch, learning to feed the horses, to whistle for the cattle, to laugh again. And with every smile, every question, every little spark she brought into that silent home, Jack began to thaw. Neighbors noticed the change too. How the silent rancher started, greeting folks again. How smoke once more rose from his chimney. How a little girl's laughter danced across the plains. One evening, while watching the sunset together, Annie looked up at him and said, "You know, sir, Mama used to say, God hides angels in hard places." Jack smiled for the first time in years, his hand resting on her shoulder. "Reckon she was right," he murmured. "And sometimes they ask to slip under your coat." He looked out at the horizon then, the orange light washing over his weathered face, and for the first time, he felt something he hadn't felt since before loss took everything: peace. If you believe in second chances, in kindness that still survives in the coldest hearts, and in stories that remind us of the beauty of humanity, then make sure to subscribe to our channel. Join us for more powerful tales like this one, stories that touch your heart, make you believe again. and remind you that even in the loneliest deserts of life, there's always a light waiting to be found. Subscribe now, and let's ride through more unforgettable Wild West stories together.